Hey guys, it's Toniko Pantoja, and today I'd like to share you guys some of the worst professional advice I've ever received. Some garbage material, just absolute garbage. And these are advice I've received from professionals on top, some coworkers, and teachers too. The first one that I can think of is to adapt to professional art style, man. Don't do anime, bruh. That's noob art. So first of all, what the hell does a professional art style mean? Personally, I do believe that everyone should have decent draftsmanship skills, so technical draftsmanship skills for solid drawing, design draftsmanship to utilize the elements of principles and design into your own work, and observational skills so you're able to capture, adapt, and recreate, or adapt another style. And there's a lot of projects out there that have different styles, so this whole notion of adapting a professional art style doesn't make sense to me. I remember when I was at school, a student submitted character design artwork and it kind of had an anime style, and the teacher warned the student that there are still people in charge out there who still believe anime is this amateurish art style. But remember, this was 7 years ago, so I think the landscape has changed a lot, especially in Western animation. Now there's a lot of younger people taking charge in the animation industry and embracing the anime style, and sometimes you'll see job postings where they're actively looking for people who are familiar with the anime language. So I kind of have two counter advices for this. Keep fostering your own current work, and to improve that, keep experimenting, keep getting out of your comfort zones, and study the work that you look up to, and break down why it works. And then the second advice I would give is that if you really want to work in a certain studio, look at all the artists that come from that studio, and find common elements that you can find in those artists' works. And so when you make a portfolio to cater to that studio, you're showing them that you too can hit those marks and work in their aesthetics. Don't do fan art or make any fan content. Now, I've only heard a few professionals kind of preach this, where they say not to do any fan art, just keep doing original content, and honestly, most of those people are not really well liked. To me, they come off as party poopers. There's a lot of BS excuses like you're not presenting yourself professionally, or that you're not showing your true voice as an artist. The only ones that I can sort of agree is related to legal issues, or the legality stuff, the law stuff. Remember, with fan art, you're dealing with copyright characters, and sometimes cease and desist can happen. But in terms of your career or your artistic growth, people who have done fan art have gotten really great opportunities. If you really like an existing story, a character, then you're going to do a much better job producing art featuring those, and those will sort of showcase your skills and what you're truly capable of. In most cases, it attracts more viewers to your work. And a lot of fan projects, fan art, fan content have given some people some great job opportunities. And about the whole voice sticking out, it can still show in fan art, since you're pretty much putting your own spin and take while using copyright and existing material as a sort of template. So if you like doing fan art and you want to keep doing it, by all means, don't stop. Eventually you want to give your fan content a bit more of your spin, a bit more of your original takes, and then eventually invest in your own original work. Now this one's a pretty popular one, which is have zero distractions while working. For example, listening to music while working. This is pretty well known from the Animator Survival Kit written by Richard Williams. There's a section in the book where Richard Williams asks Milt Kahl, is it okay to listen to music, or do you listen to music while working? And Milt Kahl responds, that's a really dumb question, that's stupid. And Richard concludes that we must be totally focused and engrossed in our work without any distractions. So number one, everyone's different. So personally, I like to listen to music when I'm doing mundane things or laborious things like in-betweening. But when it comes to writing, then I kind of have to turn off music because I can't really focus what I'm writing if I'm listening to music with lyrics, for example, whereas some people can. A lot of my friends do miss working in the building because of that social interaction or that environment where people are working, and just that environment, that atmosphere, and the sounds of people just like working in their offices helps them get in the mood. You know, some sort of stimulation to get them going. So I do have two opinions about this. The first one being that I don't think this is a worse advice, but I don't think it's an advice that should be enforced. I'm a big believer of everyone working in their full optimum, whether it's an office space, whether it's a nice environment, and that also includes whether it has music or not, or some form of background noise to sort of stimulate that work mode. There's working overtime for little pay or for free. This also includes crunch timing without pay. So I'm not going to name the studio, but I was in a situation where I was a story artist for a TV show. According to the Animation Guild rates, I was severely underpaid for what I was doing, and I was coming into the weekends to complete some boards without getting paid for it. When I requested to get fair pay, I was totally shut down and told that I had to prove myself to deserve that. So I had to prove that I was willing to take my weekends off to go to the studio and work. Unpaid, by the way. Some of the higher ups told me this is normal and it should be a thing, it should be normalized. One of the higher ups told me that he broke up with his girlfriend because of the crunch time that made him so busy and how it was normalized, and how he was totally okay with that. This is what's needed to grow in your career. So number one, that's a very dangerous way of thinking because it sets an example for the future generation or future employees, and some of them won't be able to perform those crunch times. And some of the shows that had this problem had a huge turnover of artists. Personally, I do crunch myself, but I do not enforce it to others. So if you have to participate in crunch time, make sure that you're getting paid for that overtime, or they have to work out a pipeline that doesn't make them crunch as much. Only study successful and well-known professionals. So this can happen in any industry where you'll hear repeated names over and over again, and sometimes the advice you'll hear is just to study these people because they grant success and they do what works really well in the industry they're in or in the discipline they're in. So if you're like doing 2D animation or studying to do 2D animation, how many times have you heard the name Milt Kahl, James Baxter, Glenn Keane, or Richard Williams? And then how many times have you been told to study them, and in some cases just them? I'm pretty sure visual development, concept art, character design, they all have recurring popular names that you'll hear again and again. And then some advice is to study them to the point where you're being them. Personally, I think it's good to study many artists, especially the ones that you like or the things that resonate with you, and how their work solved many problems, how they came up with their own solutions. The only thing I have against this advice is that there's a notion that some people believe that you should only study certain artists. Only study certain artists that will grant the same level of success. Like how you should just study and emulate these professionals within the industry. One of the main causes of having a bland artistic style is that one limits their number of influences and only focuses on just a few, and you just become a mere copy of these certain individuals. My number one advice for this is to always take in many different influences, even the ones that aren't really successful or popular, but you tend to resonate with it. So let's say if there's an art style that you really like, but is not really well known or really well received, maybe find a way to take what works for that artist and that style, and then use it on top of many different other inspirations. Remember, knowledge is power, so while it's good to also know why something is well received or why it works, always be open to taking in inspirations from obscure sources or things that do resonate with you. And the other advice I have is just to keep experimenting, study from life, do a completely different approach. Don't be another James Baxter or Glenn Keane or whatever artist just to be able to get work or be successful in a career. Just be you, and opportunities will find a way to reach you. And the other advice I have is just to keep experimenting, study from life, do a completely different approach, and don't limit your sources of inspiration and influences. Only study what works, the rules and things that just grant universal appeal. So what does this one actually mean? Imagine an animation walk cycle, and then you're told that a successful walk cycle can only have these poses: the up pose, the contact pose, the down pose, things that you'll find in a Richard Williams book. The same sort of goes for storyboarding. There's like so many different philosophies of what shots to use, what shots not to use, why this shot would never work, why you shouldn't have like characters staring right at the camera. So again, I think it's good to know all of this. And if the production that you're working in calls for you to follow these rules, at least you know how to do that. If we follow the rules all the time or play safe all the time, it's going to limit our problem solving skills. Like who says portraying weight in animation can only be showcased with squash and stretch? Or that a true walk cycle should only have these up and down and contact poses. I've been in productions where a department would come up with excuses of why a simple solution to a problem won't work. They say it'll cost money, they'll say it resorts to a long restructure of the pipeline, or they'll just say it just won't work for the standard. But that is also due to the lack of creativity of not like experimenting with newer techniques and methods that could simplify the process. The other problem I see with only playing by the rules or what works is that it starts to create a reluctancy or a fear of, doing new things, experimenting, or even making mistakes. And I guess making mistakes grants instant failure to them. We should be expanding our problem-solving skills, our vocabulary. So if we do future work, we have a bigger and better understanding in how to solve certain problems, or different approaches to hit certain goals. Keep working hard, even in your free time. Don't waste that time. So this one's a bit more general, but there are professionals out there who really celebrate hard work, crunch time, and just spending most of your free time dedicated to your craft. In a way, it's kind of related to working with zero distractions, because some of these professionals preach that you shouldn't really go out to play video games, watch movies, have leisure time, and that you should be fully dedicated to your craft. I personally think that everyone should dedicate a bit of their hours just absorbing different influences, enjoying life, and obtaining those inspiration and influences so it can actually inspire and influence your work. Part of this craft is all about growing. And if you want to grow, you can't just stay at one side. You have to kind of go out, gain all these different experiences, and grow from that. Not just an artist, but just as a human. So one problem I personally face is that I spend so much time on my own personal projects. Like, I know that I should spend more time playing video games or seeing friends, but I lose track of time so easily. So sometimes I'll start working on personal projects at like 10 p.m. and then it's already like 3 a.m. I didn't get to play video games. I didn't get to watch a movie or show that I could have gained something out of it. So the advice I would give is something that my therapist told me. And if you're a workaholic, is to dedicate at least 2 hours of just doing something else, like working out, cleaning your apartment, going for a trip. And even though you feel like working, it's still something that you have to sort of force yourself to do, because you might not know it, but you're slowly getting burned out from constantly working. And when the whole idea of sort of like stepping away from that work scares you, because you'll feel like, oh, you're not getting anything done or you're falling behind. And you should step away from your work more often. The last one is pretty popular and is always stated with professionals and especially with recruiters, which is to keep networking for your career. And what happens is that a lot of people, when they hear this advice, they just think of like meeting a lot of people just for the sake of networking so they can elevate themselves in their career. And this is something I personally witness with individuals. Like, they'll only talk to certain people if they are in higher standing within the industry or career. And then for people not as high, they kind of just disregard them. Guys, my guys, what happened to like building relationships? If you keep preaching networking as an advice, it's going to normalize that attitude of just talking to people just because of career opportunities. And it shouldn't be like that at all. I personally think that looking for connections just for business or career opportunities, it's not going to just burn you out, but it's also going to distort how you view people. So if I were to kind of give an alternate version of this advice, is that it is okay to reach out to people for business reasons and career reasons, but you also have to treat people with a level of respect, that you treat them as a person more than just a business partner. And those things can lead to opportunities that go beyond just mere business. So those are my thoughts on the worst professional advice I have ever received. But personally, I don't think these worst advices are that bad after all, because they do have some good intentions behind them. Whether it's just tough love from a professional, or whether it takes to be successful in this line of career. And sometimes good intentions and good advice can be taken the wrong way. And the reason why I'm relaying these certain advices is that I've heard it so much. I've heard it preached over and over again in multiple occasions. But the worst thing about these advices is that they don't come from a place that is genuine. It's just a preaching that's been passed down over and over again. There's nothing personal and intimate about it. It's just standard generic advice that I see can lead to many problems. And I have seen problems that came from these advice. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the worst advice a pro could give. Anyway, interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.